Previously on Following in the Wake of Paul, I set a challenge that would not only test the students' newly found sailing skills, but expose their leadership abilities.
All over to you guys, and when we're at Gamella Island, we'll take over again.
We've had a fairly straightforward sailing morning. I'm not in the competitive spirit. This is about us sailing and working to our ability.
And we can't even see them. We look back there, they are that far behind us, we might as well not call it a race anymore.
So how important is it for you to win this race?
On a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably sitting at about a 9, 9.5.
The Apostle Paul is without doubt the most important theologian in Christian history. Yet rarely do we think about the physical conditions Paul had to operate under to bring the gospel to the ends of the earth. My name is Tim Foster, and in this series I'm leading a small group of Ridley students for a study trip of a lifetime.
Hang on!
We will be tracing Paul's missionary journeys, not just by land, but by sea. This is Following in the Wake of Paul.
Over there.
Oh, no, not that one.
And then there's one in between.
No, that's it there. It's going to be too deep.
Yeah!
Oh, wow.
Good job on the anchor.
So that means we won the race or what?
I think so. Tim's driving their boat.
Yeah, that's cheating.
Oh, I'm going paragliding.
Did we win? I think so. We got to the island first, if that was the finish line, and also they had Tim driving them into the anchorage, whereas we had a student rod. So I guess that means we win, but I'm not too sure, and I don't mind too much. We're here.
Each of these students will be engaged in some form of ministry in the near future, and for most of them it will involve some level of leadership. As expected, this exercise exposed the kind of leaders they are and gave Phil and me valuable insights into each of their strengths and weaknesses. So I wanted to debrief with Phil over what we learnt about leadership development.
So Phil, we set the crew a special mission yesterday. How did they kind of respond to that initially?
I think they were perhaps a little bit surprised initially, but quickly we started to see people being put in their various roles, I think, kind of in a natural way. But, you know, one of the guys, he was really keen to sail, really keen to be involved with everything from the outset, and he naturally took up a leadership role in terms of standing up and, you know, standing behind the wheel and actually saying, okay, this is what we're going to do.
We had a similar kind of process, but what was perhaps different is, one, it was a female who kind of took charge, but she didn't put herself in charge. So she said, right, you're the captain, you're the navigator, you're the this, and they said to me, you're down the galley cooking for us. And so that was kind of different, rather than saying, I'm the leader and you're... So that was kind of a bit interesting, yeah. And there's a real parallel with church ministry there, isn't there? Because when we actually, rather than doing the ministry ourselves, if we have the axiom that it's their ministry, not ours, and we permission give and empower, then there's a level of responsibility and engagement, which is really has huge kingdom benefits.
Yeah, and she also, she knew what she had to do. So it was kind of like giving a role description, which I always think is the biggest problem in any ministry. We say, can you do this? And we don't actually tell them what's to be done.
And you gave her training, so you actually equipped her and gave her the opportunity to check in.
Yeah.
But you also didn't micromanage her.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And the skipper was delegating out the helming role as well as...
So they took it in turns.
Yeah, and he did the training with them, helping them to steer. And it was interesting, again, seeing...
So you trained him and now he was training them.
Yeah, that's the way I
love
put it.
that.
Yeah.
So I think we'd both agree that the people who were, as it were, in the second chair, the followers, were very good in their roles.
Yes, they were.
Most people, and it's certainly evident in the sample that we have here,
Yeah.
prefer to be the second in charge of a team or a follower rather than a leader.
Yes.
And they like to be told what to do, given their parameters, given their tasks, and do it. Peter Adam once said that there's a lot of people who want to be two ICs, but not a lot of people actually want to lead a church.
Yeah.
But actually what we need is people who want to lead a church. We've got too many people who want to be followers. We need more leaders. Yeah. How do we take the 70% of people, 80% of people here who are comfortable at this level of followership or leadership to actually become leaders? How do we give them the confidence? How do we give them the competence? Is it possible?
That's a great question. Yes, I think it's entirely possible, but how we go about it is the big issue. So, you talked about Rod delegating out the task and training someone to sail. So,
and he's a natural leader.
Yeah, he's a natural leader, and that person who came in, they put their hand up, yes, I'd like to helm. And so, this person's got potential. So you put them in the chair and you say, have a go. And if you fail, let's talk about that. How do we move on to the next bit? And let's give it a go again, sort of thing. And that's what impressed me about that particular person, because, they steered the other day and, the booze bus pulled them over and they were gone. But then they steered the next day and they're better. And if they steer today, they'll be even better.
I think what we're talking about is ultimately people need to be mentored by strong leaders. They need to have models who are strong leaders, and they need people who will give them opportunities to build their confidence and their competence, so that they don't have too much competence is no good without the confidence to do it. Too much confidence without the competence is a disaster, and that tends to be what men often have, and that tends to be what women often have. They've actually given us in those exercises a lot of data to work with. Like, we've been able to look into their soul and I think see more quickly than you would if they worked for you in church on as a student minister for 6 months. You probably wouldn't know as much as what we've learned about them in 4 or 5 days.
And I've experienced that throughout ministry. You don't actually know
what they're like.
Yeah, and especially when you've got part-time staff in, that's very hard.
So there's strengths and weaknesses, and part of that too is that they have been under pressure. They have been hot. They have been a little bit queasy. They have wanted a shower. They have felt a bit discombobulated because they've got no clean clothes left.
What's combobulated mean?
Not quite right, And so, in a sense, it's very easy to put on a show, at least for the first 6 months. But in this sort of context, it's hard to do that.
Yeah, because it's a compressed situation.
Want some orange?
Yeah, thanks. Did you chew that bit? No. It's a compressed situation, and you're seeing them work in that pressure environment, but they learn quickly, and they learn quickly, I think, their skills and their strengths as well. And weaknesses, and you can see people taking on those roles and yesterday, I think there was actually really good success. And I have to say, looking at it, because I had trouble comprehending it myself in seeing how the people are going to reflect on it, but having reflected on it, I can see the potential of how this parallels into other fields of life.
So how this experience in this intense leadership incubator we call a yacht actually translates to church-based or mission-based ministry.
Great.
All right, mate.
Oh no, you've just had orange.
In the next and final episode of Following in the Wake of Paul, we arrive at one of the best preserved and most fascinating ancient ports, the place where Paul stopped on his captivity journey. And Ridley student Dave Horn breaks something on the boat that causes an unholy smell, leaving everyone gasping for fresh air.
Oh my gosh, when he opens the door though, it's a bit wafty. It's like, come on, Dave.
All this and more on Following in the Wake of Paul.